Om Sarve Sukhina Santu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukhamapnuyat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from disease. May all beings see only goodness in others. May no one have to undergo any suffering. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Good morning to everyone. To those of you who are watching at home, and to the handful of brave souls attending in person. We are still close to the public, but somehow a few devotees are attending. And I appreciate it a lot because it's not easy to find a motivation to talk to a hall of empty chairs. They're rather unresponsive. When you got a joke, I have to laugh myself because there's no one else to help. So even having a handful of devotees makes such a difference, to be able to feel that you're talking to a human being. Our subject today is ancient wisdom for modern problems. Long ago, long ago, there was a wise fish, and he was respected in the fish community. The fish would come and ask him questions because he was a wise old fish. So once a young fish came and asked him, "Sir, I keep hearing about the ocean. What is the ocean? I hear so much about it." The big fish said, "Oh, the ocean, it's all around you." The little fish said, "What do you mean, all around me? Why can't I see the ocean? Can you show me the ocean?" The big fish said, "Well, the ocean is all around you. You're born in the ocean, you live in the ocean, you will die in the ocean. The ocean is within you and all around you." The fish insisted, "Can you show me the ocean?" No, as I told you, you are in the ocean already." And the little fish was not satisfied. And this is similar to our condition. Vedanta tells us that God is everywhere. This whole universe is nothing but God. We live and move and do everything in this divine consciousness, and yet we are not aware of it, and we want proof of it. Show me God. You say God is everywhere. Well, show him or her to me. How come I cannot see God? So we are like that little fish that is swimming in the ocean but wants to see the ocean. So instead of feeling that we are surrounded by God, we often feel we are surrounded by problems. It is true, there are problems everywhere. One problem is solved, another one arises. But there are solutions as well. The solutions to our problems are all around us as well. If we can seek carefully, we'll find the solutions. God is not some cruel creator who thought, let me create the universe and place all kinds of beings in that universe, and they will be miserable. And that's my plan. So there are so many problems and no solutions, and we are doomed. No, it's not like that. There are problems, but there are solutions as well. So coming back to the story of the fish, another day, another little fish came and said, "Sir, I keep hearing about the wonders of the ocean. What are the wonders of the ocean?" The old fish said, "Oh, they are infinite. There are so many wonders in the ocean. Look at that school of fish, so brightly colored, swimming so nicely in synchronicity. Isn't that a wonder?" The little fish said, well, just small fish." Then the big fish said, the old fish said, "Look at that blue whale, the biggest animal in the world, so majestic, singing that mysterious song. Isn't that a wonder?" The little fish said, just a big fish." So whatever the old fish showed the little fish, he was not impressed. Big fish, small fish, starfish, jellyfish. What is there to wonder? So sometimes we are like that as well. We are surrounded by the wonders of God in this universe. But we go, it's just a car, it's just a dog, it's just a human being, it's just a life. We are surrounded by wonders, but we don't appreciate them. So the solutions to our problems are before us, but we overlook them. We're too busy with our little things, daily life. Someone said that in affluent societies, our basic needs are taken care of. The vast majority of the population, they don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, where they are going to spend the night. Food and shelter and basic things like that are pretty much taken for granted by the vast majority of the population, whether they are wealthy or not. So there's, I can't remember where the quote comes from, but this philosopher said that when these affluent societies have taken care of our basic needs, human beings become a problem unto themselves. Basic problems are taken care of. So we create our own problems. We are very good at it. So if there are no problems, we'll create them. If you compare our lives with the lives of other people in other parts of the world, they will look at us and they will think, these people are living in heaven. I don't know how to feed my children. I don't have drinking water. And you say you have problems. So everything is relative. So we become a problem unto ourselves. We create our own problems. We manufacture them. So what are modern problems where Vedanta could help us? Well, there's so many. Basically, for every problem, Vedanta could be of help to us. But let us deal with some very common problems. One of them is stress. Now, stress is not something bad per se. It is something natural. We all have stress levels. It's a mechanism to protect ourselves. There is a threat to my life or to my safety or whatever, to my family. So I become very alert. How should I react to this threat? So naturally, there is a whole mechanism in the body and mind to deal with this situation. So there is nothing wrong with stress. Either we will take flight or we will fight the threat. In the old days, it was straightforward. The caveman. There is a dinosaur or something like that approaching, they will run away, and the stress is gone. There is a dispute about food, smash the skull of the other person. Stress is over. So either you fight or flight. And it was very straightforward. Now in modern life, we cannot break someone else's skull, and we cannot run away from our stressful situations. So what do? We keep it inside, and it builds up. So this fighting instinct becomes anger, and it's all bottled up. And the flight instinct becomes fear and anxiety. I cannot run away from it, so I'm anxious. What is going to happen? This threat is still there in my life, but I cannot run away from it. So this anxiety builds up. So anger and anxiety are the common symptoms of unhealthy levels of stress. So we all have a stress. The matter is it under control or not? Is it healthy or not? So how could Vedanta help us in handling stress? Two things. We could become detached, and we can meditate. And these two disciplines go together. When we speak of detachment, it doesn't mean that we don't care, that we bury our head in the sand, that we don't want to know. No, it means I know fully well what's going on, what the situation is. I take everything into account, and yet I am able to put some distance between myself and the situation. When we are able to create some distance between what's going on, whatever it may be, and myself as the witness, that is detachment. We still care. We still know what's going on. And yet, we are a little bit removed. We are not entangled emotionally. We are not overwhelmed by it. That is what is meant by detachment. Because sometimes it can have a negative connotation. Oh, he doesn't care. He's callous. No, no, no. Detachment means you care. You know what's going on. But getting involved emotionally is not going to help. You need a cool, detached mind to judge the situation impartially, without my own likes and dislikes being involved. What is the best course of action here? In order to be able to assess properly, we remove ourselves a little and look at it from a distance. You could think of it as a bubble. We create a bubble around us. And wherever we go, in any situation we're in, that bubble is around us. So something happens, is very distressing. Well, I can see it happening. I'm fully aware. And yet, there is this bubble of detachment around me, wherever I go, whatever I do. Wouldn't that be wonderful to be able to create that fence around us? To all appearances, we are doing everything, and yet we are detached. That is the challenge, to be able to create that protection. That detachment will help us in that way. What happens when we are able to detach ourselves, even if it is not perfect detachment, partial detachment, even to some extent it will help us. How? When we are detached, we save energy. How come? We save energy. What happens is, suppose at my job, my boss has been unfair to me. I was due for promotion, and I was overlooked. Somebody else was promoted. So I have so many choices. I can accept the reality, or I can brood over it for days, weeks, and months, and years. Somebody stole my wallet. Well, it's very upsetting, and it probably wasn't my fault. I was careful, and still it was stolen. It was not my own carelessness. Still, it happened. Well, it's very upsetting. I have to get a new driver license, credit card, whatever, set of keys, whatever I had in the wallet. And I can get on with the work and start doing all this work, or I can go on complaining about the wallet and this is awful and dwelling on this and just hating myself and the world because of this. If we are detached, we move on. Okay, you were overlooked. You did not get the promotion. So what? Thinking about it is not going to change it. Okay, your wallet was lost or stolen. You cannot recover. It's gone. You know who took it, whatever. Complaining about it will not change it. It's gone. If we are detached, we are able to move on very quickly. We don't dwell on it. We don't hold on to that negative feeling. It happens also in our relationships. Oh, somebody was mean. Yes, okay, I know it was mean. It is true. I move on. Nobody's perfect. This world is not perfect. So I move on. This detachment will help us in that way. We save energy when we are able to move on. So one way to judge whether we are detached or not is to see how we react when we go through this type of experiences. Something unfair happened. Something unexpected happened. Some loss. Are we able to move on quickly or not? Or do we dwell on it and blame ourselves or blame others and hate the whole world for it? If we can move on very quickly, that's a good sign. We have developed detachment. We accept whatever is, good or bad, and we move on. So detachment is very important. The other practice is meditation, and I think they go together. It's very hard to develop this detachment without looking at our minds and examining our thoughts. Now, meditation, there's a whole industry devoted to stress management. And it's a big business. So meditation is part of it. You have books, videos, workshops, special seats for meditation, special everything, candles, incense, you name it. So there is something called secular meditation. It's not spiritual, it's not religious. It may have originated in the East, but now it has been adopted pretty much all over the world, and it's secular meditation. There is nothing, no belief in anything, and yet you can meditate. So early this year, I had an experience about this secular meditation. My doctor retired, so I got an email telling me that I'm retiring, please find another doctor and make an appointment. So I found another doctor, made an appointment, and I was waiting in the waiting room. And so they show some videos. There's a big screen, you're waiting, what to do. So videos about health tips and that kind of thing that you would expect at the doctor's office. So one video caught my attention. It was meditation. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's from the point of view of the doctor. So let me see what they have to say. So it was a few minutes long. There was, of course, no mention of God, no mention of the soul, religion, nothing at all. But I still liked it. I thought it was very good. So they said, how to meditate for the beginner who has no idea about meditation. So they said, well, when you meditate, you sit quietly, try to breathe deeply or rhythmically, and then you have to imagine as if there is a busy road with a lot of traffic. And there's a bench by the side of the road, and you're sitting in that bench watching the traffic. And Your job as a meditator is to watch the traffic and nothing else. So we have the tendency to act, to be proactive. So what is this procession of traffic, trucks and cars and motorcycles and whatnot? These are all our problems, our worries, whatever arises when we sit to meditate. Think of all these thoughts, this mental activity, as a flow of traffic on a busy road. And you're seated on the bench, just looking. You are not supposed to stop the traffic. You are not supposed to control it. You don't stand in the middle of the road and spread out your arms and try to stop it. That's not the idea. That's not how it works. You just sit there and watch it pass by, peacefully, relaxed. So I thought, this is good advice. I like it. I like it. I mean, if you don't have any belief in God, if you don't have any religion, and if you are struggling with stress, this is a very nice exercise. It should help people. In a way, we are trying to detach ourselves from our problems, from our anxieties, obsessions. We can get into a rut of thinking the same negative thoughts. Then we start losing sleep at night and things like that. Why? So we try to detach ourselves. Just watch this crazy traffic go by. Don't get involved. Just watch it. And that will create a kind of detachment. At least it will be the beginning of thinking of ourselves as different from our thoughts. That's a wonderful improvement. If we can think of ourselves, the thinker, as different from our thoughts, that's a wonderful start. So that is secular meditation. But of course, we are in Vedanta and we want something else. This is very good for beginners, but we want to get more out of this. So in Vedanta, in a very basic way, we do two things when we meditate. We withdraw our mind from, and our senses from the daily activity, from all the restlessness. That is step number one, withdrawal. Step number two is engaging the mind on a positive thinking process, whatever it may be. Think of it as a lamp. A lamp without a shade, the light is scattered. Now, that is our normal state of mind. So every day at a certain particular time, whenever we find it easier for us, we put a shade on the lamp and with some mirrors inside to direct the light, and then that will create a beam of light. So that beam of light will go much further than the scattered rays of the light. So we withdraw means we cover the mind, we will drawing it in, and then we direct it in one way, as a beam of light. So that's what we do. Try to gather it in from all these distractions and then focus it intensely. It's a dual process. In ancient times, long ago, Patanjali spoke about this in his yoga aphorisms. He gave it just 2 words, but they are so important. Pravritti, nivritti. What is vritti? Vritti is a mental modification, a wave in the lake of the mind. So I think something, that is a vritti. So what is pravritti? It is with modifications, with waves. That is our normal condition. The mind, the lake of the mind is broken into waves, and the mind is scattered. Another name for pravritti is outgoing tendencies. We want to see, we want to eat, we want to talk, we want to socialize, we want to achieve, we want to go places. All these things that everybody likes and everybody does falls into the category of pravritti, outgoing tendencies. This goes on from early morning until late evening. Late evening also, I want to watch the news. I want to watch a movie. And in the morning is, I want a cup of coffee. So from the first thought in the morning until the last thought at night, there is nothing but pravritti, outgoing tendencies. The opposite is nivritti, the absence of modifications. So the lake of the mind is calm, unperturbed. And that is also translated as inwardness, introspection. So our problem in modern life seems pretty obvious. We have neglected nivritti. We have neglected introspection. And we are all pravritti. We are all outgoing tendencies. No wonder we are stressed out. It is to be expected. It makes perfect sense. There is an imbalance. We are supposed to combine activity and introspection. That makes for a well-balanced life. But instead of that, it is all activity and no introspection at all. No caring about who is the thinker, who is the enjoyer. No, we never wonder about that. I think, I enjoy, I live, I die. Who was it that lived? Who was it that died? We will never know, because we never asked the question. So Patanjali dealt with this, in ancient times. We need both, pravritti and nivritti. We need activity, of course, in order to live, but we need to combine it with introspection. That will help us a lot. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, limit your undertakings. Whenever some opportunity presents itself to do something, ask yourself, is it really necessary? Is it really important? What will be the outcome? Especially his disciples who were a little advanced in age, he would say, this is the time to think of God. If you don't do it now, when will you do it? So stop looking for new things to do and dive deeper into this introspection. Psychologists also say we have to be able to say no. We are invited to a party. What will they think if I say no? Nothing. Say no. But our social engagements and the pressure from society, we find it hard to say no. We have to lie and invent an excuse because we cannot say no. We should be able to say, I have too much going on, sorry. And the first time, maybe somebody will mind. The second time, they will think, oh, he's like that, she's like that. That's okay. So we should be able to say no when we are under pressure and not get involved into more activities than we can deal with comfortably. Another thing to keep in mind with this idea of stress is that the cause of our stress is not out there. It is not the boss who was mean to you. It is not the spouse who will not understand you. It is not your children who won't behave. The cause of our stress is internal. It is in us. And it's a hard truth to acknowledge. If we are stressed out, the cause is within us, not out there. What happens outside is just triggering our stress. We are unfit to handle it, and we become stressed out. If that was not the case, then the same people under the same circumstances would be equally stressed, but they don't. Some people cope very well Some people break down. Why? Because they're equipped differently internally to cope with the same situation. There's a nice story in the life of Swami Nirakarananda. He was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He was traveling by boat once, and suddenly a storm arose, and the boat started to rock to and fro, and it looked like it will capsize. It was such a violent storm on the Ganges. Everybody freaked out. People were shouting and praying and just at a loss what to do. It was panic. But this Swami, who was known for his quiet nature, he had been smoking his hubble bubble like the Babus or the Bengalis used to do in those days, quietly, take a puff, in his own world. So this chaos just arose, this storm, and everybody is very in a state of panic. And he continues to smoke his hubble bubble. So one of the passengers noticed that and shouted at him, "Don't you understand? We are all going to die." The Swami looked at him and took another puff. So the man was so incensed, he took the hubble bubble and threw it into the Ganges. He wanted to get his attention. And the Swami was unperturbed, even after losing his smoke. In the end, the storm subsided and nothing happened. But this is an extreme example of creating that bubble around us. Here he is, in the middle of the Ganges, on a small boat with other passengers, facing death. And he's completely unaffected. How is it possible? Everybody is just freaking out. So that is why they say the source of our stress is in us, not outside. We can strengthen ourselves to such an extent that even when our life is threatened, we will be able to look at it for what it is without getting entangled emotionally. And of course, we'll be able to deal with it better if we are able to look at it dispassionately. So why do we have stress? It's because we have lost touch with something. What is that something? We have three dimensions, so to say: physical, mental, spiritual. In Sanskrit, they call it Bahubalam, Buddhibalam, Atmabalam. So Bahu means the arms, the biceps, the body, physical strength. Buddhibalam, mental strength. Someone has a brilliant intellect, very strong mind. And then Atmabalam, spiritual strength. So we understand physical strength, we understand mental strength. We don't understand spiritual strength. How to get in touch with that source of strength, that source of power. Spiritual power is not the power to control others. It is not the power to influence others and make friends, not at all. It is the power to strengthen ourselves internally so that no matter what life or nature will throw at us, we will be able to look at it from a detached perspective. That comes from Atmabalam, from spiritual strength. Now we cannot see this spiritual dimension. Some people may have a feeling for it. They can feel that we are something else than the body and the mind, but to be really aware, like an empirical experience, is a very high state. To say, I am the Atman. I know I am the Atman. That is a very high state. We may feel that, yes, I am not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm something else. So one way to look at it, to understand this spiritual strength, spiritual dimension, think of the body as a light bulb. What is the purpose of a light bulb? To produce light. If a light bulb cannot produce light, like when they blow up, they're worthless, and we pitch them in the trash. You may have 1 million light bulbs. If they don't produce light, they're trash. So the purpose of a light bulb is to produce light. And the light is the mind. Through that, we are conscious. Through that, we are aware. Through that, we perceive this universe. So, in the body, the light bulb, this light of consciousness is produced, the mind. So where is the spiritual dimension there? It is the electricity that we cannot see. Without electricity, there will be no light. We may think that the light is there in the bulb, but it won't be there without the electricity. So you have the body is the light bulb, the mental consciousness is the light, but it is the electricity that we cannot see that is behind it all, making it happen. So that is more subtle. But that is, we want to tap that source of strength. How to do that? If we get in touch with that, our spiritual strength, it will help us immensely. Because, really speaking, we don't have spiritual problems. Our problems are physical or mental. If you boil down all our problems related to ourselves or to others, it is either affecting our body or our mind. There are no spiritual problems. From spirituality come the solutions, not the problems. So when we are able to integrate physical aspect, mental aspect, and spiritual aspect, we get the whole picture. From spirituality comes the solution, not the problem. Now what happens is, suppose we succeed in developing our inner strength and we are able to cope with stress. What happens then? That is not God realization, that is just helping us with our modern problems. Well, nothing much happens in the sense that our problems will remain. If I have a physical ailment and I was really struggling to cope with it, and I'm able to develop this spiritual strength, the physical ailment will remain. It's not going to go away just because I have become spiritual. The physical problem will remain, but I won't be affected by that. That is the important, what we get out of the benefit, you can say. You know, when Swami Vivekananda was preaching in the West, he had many disciples, and some of them left him. And the reason why they left him is because they found out that the Swami's health was not good. And they believed that a spiritual person cannot have bad health. And Swami Vivekananda, you know, he died when he was 39. He left the body. And towards the end of his life, he had many chronic illnesses. His health was pretty much bad all the time. So these people thought, what? This is a man of God? And he's so sick? No. And they left him. But the thing is, it is true. Even a world teacher like Vivekananda can have illnesses. What to speak of us? But the question we should ask is, what this illness, what did it mean to him? How did he look upon it? And the answer is, probably was nothing to him. When you know you are the whole of the soul of the whole universe, what is a little body? What is a little disease? Swami Vivekananda, he could experience that he was in every being. He was a world teacher. What is a little disease to him? When he first came to Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna was amazed. What? This young boy, he's just a student, 18 years old. He has no body consciousness at all. Sri Ramakrishna was amazed. How is it possible that in Calcutta, with all these westernized boys, English-educated boys, there can be a teenager who is completely free from body consciousness? That was Swami Vivekananda before he became Vivekananda, as a teenager. So what is a little disease to him? There's a nice story. Once he was going to give a talk here in the West, and he was walking through a corridor going to the hall, and there was a big mirror on the wall. So he looked at himself and he stopped to look at his reflection, and then he continued to walk. After a few steps, he stopped and came back and looked at himself again. Now, one lady was walking behind him, and she thought, aha, he has some vanity. Immediately, the Swami turned to her and said, you know, it's so strange. I can't remember what my reflection looks like. The moment I leave the mirror, that memory is completely removed from my memory. I just don't remember what I look like. That was Swami Vivekananda. He can't remember what he looks like. What is a little disease to him? So the point is, we may be able to learn how to cope with our problems, but the problems will remain. They won't go away, but they will not affect us as much. Just like to an illumined soul, they mean nothing. Their mind is so high above, they have no body consciousness. So these are two things that will help us: detachment and meditation. And of course, those of us who have a spiritual practice from a teacher, we have specific instructions on how to meditate. And those who don't, you can pick whatever works for you. Even the doctor's video of the traffic is better than nothing, I believe. Anything that helps us develop some degree of introspection is good. Another modern problem is conflict. And it's nothing new. There has been conflict since the beginning of time. And conflict doesn't need to be that we kill somebody or we come to blows. It can be very subtle. It can be at the mental level. Not a word is uttered. And yet, we slam the door. We like passive aggression. That is a modern kind of conflict, warfare. So conflict is a big problem, and we find it at home, at work, everywhere. Everywhere there is conflict. Swami Vivekananda, he humorously referred to this. He said, in the old days, we were savages. We used to eat one another. Now we are civilized people. We cheat one another. So there has been some progress from eating to cheating, but still not good. So there is so much conflict. Why? It's because of our ego. The reason why there is conflict is because of our ego. We want things our way. We understand what should be done, but it is always according to our likes and dislikes. I like this, I don't like that, so this is what should be done. So and so has different ideas. they don't agree with us. They say, oh no, this is what should be done. So, clash and conflict. Sri Ramakrishna said, the ego is at the root of all our suffering. If we can get rid of the ego, all our suffering will come to an end. But he also said, we can't get rid of the ego. That is the problem. He said, you may reason it 1,000,000 times. The ego comes back to you. It's impossible to get rid of it. Well, it's not completely impossible. Just become illumined. Realize you are the Atman. That's all. Then the ego disappears. But until that happens, just by reasoning, the ego will persist. It's not something that can be reasoned out. We may believe that we are the Atman. We may wish we were free from the ego. But the fact is, each one of us, whether we admit it or not, have an ego, and it tends to be bigger than we think. The problem is, modern society encourages people to be egotistic. Why? Well, society is telling us, be strong, be successful, be the best, be number one. And this starts from early in our life. I remember my first trip to India. It was before the internet came into being, almost 30 years ago. So I went to India, and I was talking with a Swami, and he was interested to know about Western culture, Western life. So he asked me some questions. And one question was, how do parents bring up their children? Do they teach them to be humble, to be self-effacing, to serve others? I thought, not really. My experience, just observing the culture, is that the parents will teach the children, study hard, work hard, and be the number one. So it's far from being humble and self-effacing. It's all about being on top of everybody else. So that is how society is designed. Be strong, be successful, be the best. So we have been building up this ego. And now Vedanta tells you the root of all the suffering and of all conflict is your ego. So you have to curb it. It's painful. It goes against our culture. And yet, it is necessary. There was a Zen master who taught his best disciple, I want you to be soft and dumb. The disciple was surprised. He said, I thought in Zen you have to be strong like a rock and sharp like a razor. How can we succeed in Zen by being soft and dumb? The teacher said, yes, you're my best disciple. I want you to be very soft and very dumb. Then he asked the disciple, which is the hardest part of your body? The disciple thought, maybe my teeth. Okay. Which is the softest, most flexible part of your body? I guess my tongue. Then the teacher said, well, I'm an old man. Look at my mouth. All my teeth are fallen out. My tongue is just fine. So then he continued, look at that mighty tree. Everybody admires that beautiful, majestic tree. But when the tornado comes, it's the first candidate to be uprooted. And the humble grass that is tread upon by everybody, it will sway back and forth unaffected, happily, in the tornado. So he said, be like the humble grass. Then he said, dumb people want to show their wisdom. They may know very little, but they are very eager to show off. But when we show our knowledge, it's to impress others, because we already know what we know. So we don't need to show to ourselves. When we want to show others our talents, our capacity, is to impress others, to show to others. So dumb people are very eager to share what little they know. But wise people are very reluctant to open their mouths and show what they know. Sri Ramakrishna used to say about Vivekananda, he never shows all he knows. He really liked that trait of Vivekananda. He said, he knows, but he will not show what he knows. That's the sign of wisdom. Then he said, rich people want to appear poor. Poor people want to appear rich. Even we see it in modern life. The CEOs of the top companies, billionaires, they will dress in a very ordinary T-shirt and a hoodie, and they don't pay any taxes that way. They are just like each one of us. They want to pass, I am just an ordinary guy. Just, why tax me? And poor people, they will spend all their savings maybe in a fancy car just to show that they are better off. So the teacher said, in Zen, the same rules don't apply. Society wants you to be strong, successful, number one. I want you to be the last. I want you to be soft. In the eyes of others, not soft in reality. In the eyes of others, nobody cares about you. In the eyes of others, be dumb. Don't show what you know. Society will respect the wise, the strong. Be soft, be dumb. In that sense, he was teaching him. So these are all stories to show the need to curb our ego, because ego is at the root of all conflict. If we are spiritual, we are supposed to let go to some extent. Okay, I have my likes and dislikes. I would like it to be this way, but for the sake of peace, I let it go. Whoever wants, whichever way they want to do it, let them. So it's not that we are egoless. We have our ego. We have our likes and dislikes. But we make a deliberate effort to curb it, to keep it under control, to observe it for what it is. I have these likes and dislikes. Well, I developed them over time. I could change them as well. Who knows? The other person may be right. I may be wrong. Nobody can be right all the time. We have to assume that very often we are wrong. In fact, the chances are 50-50 that we are wrong. Another thing to deal with conflict is to lower our expectations. We all create subconsciously expectations from others or from situations. But the fact is that everything changes all the time, including ourselves. So these expectations, they are a delusion. They're just how the mind works. Something happened in the past, so it will repeat itself in the future. So-and-so gave a nice talk, so I will listen to his talk today, but the talk is lousy. Well, why do you have expectations? Just because somebody gave a good talk, it doesn't mean that the next time it will be good. We are assuming that it will be good because in the past it was good. Or in the past it was bad, so today I won't bother because I know he cannot speak very well. So we build subconsciously our expectations all the time. And it is irrational because everything is changing all the time. How can we create fixed expectations when everything is in a state of flux? It just makes no sense. But it's just how the mind works. The mind wants to label things, structure things in a certain way. This happened in the past, So it will happen in the future. No, it's not really so. It may happen or it may not. Always, chances are 50-50. We are always flipping a coin. We don't know which way it will come. Just because 99 times it came one way, the next time we flip it, it's 50-50, the chances. Not 1%. It's still 50-50. So if we have no expectations, we will never be disappointed. Isn't that wonderful? To be able never to be disappointed. Recently, I don't know how, but you know, when you're watching something on YouTube, you get suggestions. It's like on the right side, so many videos will be suggested. Now, I don't know how it came, but it said, one video was, why you will always marry the wrong person. And I thought, oh, that looks intriguing. Let me watch that. And I was surprised. It was a much deeper talk than I expected. I thought it would be something, you know, just to, what do they call it? Clickbait, I guess. Because the title was, I mean, you're not telling that sometimes you will marry the wrong person. You will always marry the wrong person. So I thought, how can they say that? But what he said made sense. He said, marriage for love is a comparatively recent development in society. 200 years, 250 years ago, we can trace it back. Before that, it was all about what makes sense. Our families belong to the same religion. Our families are in the same business. We have property and land adjoining, so we'll defend it together if we get married. That kind of thing. And love was, you know, not really the important issue at all. But then in recent times, this developed, that I love somebody, I want to get married to them, and we will be happy ever after. And it's all very good, but it's based on this expectation that I know this person very well, first. Second, they are not going to change. So for the rest of one's life, one is making a huge commitment based on an expectation. But we know everything changes. So this guy was telling in his talk that it is a universal experience that sooner or later the spouses will find that the other party has changed, or there are parts of their personality they did not know. It's bound to happen. Human beings are so complex. So then the second stage is, okay, it's not a perfect love. It's not a perfect marriage, but I'm going to make it work anyway. My partner will have to put up with me. I will have to put up with them, and we'll make it work. I thought it was very interesting because it spoke about expectations as being the point why people become disillusioned, is because of their expectations. And this doesn't need to be about marriage. This is about our whole lives. We become disillusioned. So we end up with the wrong boss, with the wrong kids. It's not just about the spouse. Wrong kids, wrong parents, wrong boss. Everything is wrong. How can everything be wrong? Maybe I am wrong. Maybe my expectations are unrealistic. I'm expecting things to be according to my liking. But the truth is, people are what they are. If we are unable to change ourselves, how can we expect to change others? It's just not possible. Once a teacher told his disciple, love is like water. The disciple said, what do you mean, love is like water? I don't understand. The teacher said, come, let's go to the pond. Then he said, take some water in the palm of your hand. Then the teacher said, that is love. The disciple said, What do you mean that is love? It's just water. He said, yeah, but that stands for love. When you can hold it. It is in your hand. Now, try to grasp it. It just slips through your fingers. When you try to grasp love, it slips through your fingers. It's just like water. You can hold it. You can't own it. So in all our relationships, we can love people. We can't own them. It is our love so long as the palm is open. The moment we want to hold on to it and make it ours, really, we lose it. So I think it's a beautiful example. If you keep your palm open, a bee may come to drink the water, a butterfly, a bird. You can drink the water as well. Then it will rain again and water will collect. But if we close and try to hold on to it, we end up with nothing and nobody else benefits. I think that's a beautiful example. How to love without being possessive. Unfortunately, the time is up, and we have talked a little about these two modern problems. Stress, that would be at the personal level, and conflict at the interpersonal level. One more thing we can mention before we stop. Another thing that we can take from Vedanta is the idea of the unity of existence. Vedanta teaches it is one being manifesting as many. The reality is we are all one. So if we can develop a feel for that I am not alone in this world, I am not separated from others, that will help us a lot to get rid of conflict. If I feel some kind of connection with the other person, how can I fight? It is only when I feel separated. You are you, I am me. Let's fight. It's very hard to fight with people we love. And who do we love more than ourselves? And the other person is myself. It's just one being appearing as many. In Buddhism, they speak of dependent origination. That means from the time we come into being, we depend on others, and others depend on us. However independent we may want to be, however individualistic we may want to be, the fact is we are part of a system. That is how we come into being. We come into being as part of a greater system. So dependent origination, from our very inception, from the time we come into being, we depend on others, whether we like it or not. Others depend on us. Why? Because underneath all this multiplicity, there is one consciousness appearing as many. So if we can absorb these ideas and assimilate them and make them part of our awareness, that will help us a lot. We start feeling for others, and then conflict. Why? Why should I fight? We are all one. Anyway, these are some ideas about how this ancient wisdom of Vedanta can help us cope with modern problems. So we'll do the closing prayer, and then we'll take a couple of minutes to set up the Zoom meeting. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.